Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me again today. Today I thought it would be fun to use my sourdough starter that I started on my own, and we'll make some flour sourdough tortillas and also some sourdough loaf bread. We need both in our household for dinner and just for lunches and everything. So I just want to show you how easy it is to make these using your sourdough starter and how easy it is to maintain your sourdough. We're also later on, while this is proofing and rising, we are going to make some refrigerator veggies, pickled veggies, and those will not take very long at all. So I'm excited to share these couple recipes with you today that I use often and my family enjoys. The first thing that I want to talk to you guys about is how easy it is to start some sourdough starter. It does take some time, so that is what you need, is just time and patience. But honestly, I start it and then I just leave it. I just check on it once a day, do my thing that I need to do, which I'll explain to you in a minute what that is. And I use it when it's ready about a week later. So all that I do to start my own sourdough starter is I take a cup of flour, any kind of flour, bread flour, wheat flour, unbleached white flour. I just use some all-purpose white flour, and then I do also an equal amount of water, so 1 cup of filtered water. I mix them together really, really well, make sure scrape down the sides, and then I leave it. And then the next day, you take out half of the mixture, so half a cup of your starter, make sure to throw it in the garbage, and then I add half a cup of flour and half a cup of water. You just consistently do that until day 6, and on day 6 you want to feed it twice, once in the morning and once at night. Also discarding same amounts, 1/2 cup flour, 1/2 cup water. And then on day 7, it should be bubbly and ready to use. Okay, the first thing that we are going to make are the sourdough tortillas. And for that, all that you do is you gather your ingredients, which will be 1 cup of flour, some olive oil, some salt, I just use sea salt, some starter, and some water. You measure them all out, the amounts that they ask for in the recipe, and then you just put them into the bowl. We'll put the bowl with all of our ingredients in it, and we will put it on the stand mixer, which will do all of the work for us for a few minutes. So for this recipe, and I will link this recipe below, we will need 1 cup of sourdough starter. By the way, my starter has been fed. It was fed last night, so it was bubbly and it's ready to use now. Most recipes, unless it's sourdough discard, you're gonna wanna do that. You're gonna wanna feed your sourdough a few hours before you use it. And then make sure that it gets nice and bubbly and rises a little bit. You'll see that it will rise. And then that means that it's active and ready to use. If it's a discard recipe, you don't have to do all of those things. I use sourdough. I've learned to love how to use it because it's just so easy. I think it's just so easy. And it's just 3/4 cup water. So I'm just gonna come over and grab some water really quick. This is just filtered water that I'm using, nothing special. I'm gonna use a 1/4 cup of olive oil, 1½ teaspoons of salt, and then the last ingredient is our flour. So I want 3 cups of flour. This is a 2-cup scoop, and I love this so much. I use it all the time in my cooking. I didn't think that I would because it's such a big scoop, but a lot of recipes, especially the sourdough recipes, call for big amounts of flour. So 2-cup scoop is really helpful. Okay, now that all of that is in there, I'm going to put it on my mixer with my dough hook. And then I'm gonna turn it on to the first speed at first, and then once I can see that everything's starting to get incorporated, I'm going to turn it up to the speed 2. So that's just gonna do its thing for a moment. And then after that's done, what we're gonna do with it is we are going to place it in a floured bowl and just cover it with a cloth and let it hang out for the day. And then tonight, when I need my flour tortillas for the recipe that I'm gonna be making, which is pork enchiladas, I will shape them and I will put them on the pan and cook them up. This will make about 12 tortillas. All right, I've been watching the sourdough as it's been kneading just gradually just to see what it looks like. I've been doing this for a little while now, so I can just tell by looking at it what it should look like when it's done. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off. You want to grab it out. This is not required, but I always like to do it. My dough is really soft feeling, and it's just, you can tell it's kind of, I don't know, bread dough, I guess you could say. Has a bread dough feel to it. You don't need the tortillas to be anything special really. You just kind of want it to be elasticy. I like to knead it a couple times just to make sure that the mixer did most of the work, but that it's how it should be in the end. So I just kind of knead it and then form it into a dough. Or into a ball. And then once that's done, and it kind of looks like this, I just place it into my flour dish, put a little bit more flour on top, and then I grab a towel and put my towel over the top. Okay, now I'm gonna set that off to the side, and that has to sit for about, it says 12 to 24 hours. That's so that it can ferment and you can get the good benefits from the sourdough while it sits and ferments. The recipe said that if you are gluten intolerant, then if you let it ferment for a full 24 hours, that's better for you. There's so many benefits for sourdough, and it smells so good when you make it that I absolutely love making it. The next thing that we're going to make directly into this bowl, I'm not gonna rinse it or anything because as you can see, I'm not really gonna rinse anything just because we're gonna be making more bread in here, and you can tell that the tortillas incorporated everything that we had previously put into here. So there's not really a need to do that yet. I will of course wash this after we're done making the bread. For this bread loaf, what we're gonna need is we're gonna need some more sourdough starter. We're gonna need water, an egg this time, honey, olive oil, and sea salt. So you can use, this calls for all-purpose flour, unbleached all-purpose flour. That's what I'll use, but you could probably also use a little bit of bread flour. It might just make it a little bit more dense. You could also probably use a little bit of wheat flour as well if you wanted to. Again, that's probably gonna make it a little bit more dense. My children do not like dense bread. They like light and fluffy bread. So when I am looking for recipes, I usually try and find something that says light and fluffy with not a hard crust, a softer crust. They really like that. So this particular recipe that I'm using today said that it was a light and fluffy with a soft crust sourdough bread loaf, even though we know sourdough usually has a little bit of a thicker crunchier crust. So let's go ahead and get started with this. This calls for 1 cup of sourdough starter. So I'm gonna start there. Like the tortillas, we also just take everything, all of the ingredients, and put them in the bowl, and then we're gonna use the stand mixer to just mix absolutely everything together. The stand mixer is gonna do all of the work for us, or the majority of the work, and then we will have it sit and ferment for most of the day. Again, fermenting is a long process, and if you do this, just plan a day or so in advance that you need to do this, because you need bread around the house, or tortillas, or whatever type of sourdough product you are making. It's not hard to do, and it just takes a little bit of time. All right, we're gonna add in our flour, it calls for 2 3/4 cups. So I'm gonna use my 2 cups. Scoop again. There's half a cup, and also 1/4 of a cup to get that 3/4 of a cup. Now you might have to adjust it a little bit. I know that most sourdough recipes you want to measure. They say use a scale and measure. I have had a lot of luck not doing that and just following recipes that I find with actual cup measurements. So that's what I tend to use. But it's probably better if you do use the scale just for more accuracy. I'm adding my honey in. This is just some local honey. It calls for 1.5 tablespoons of honey. So I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it here. I'm almost out of honey anyway, so. And then this recipe actually calls for sea salt, 1 teaspoon of sea salt. So just gonna throw that in there. We have 1 egg, 1/2 cup of water, and then 1 tablespoon of olive oil. I found that sourdough recipes are very forgiving, and if you mess up a little bit, it's okay, it's fixable. You can either just add a little bit more flour or a little bit more water. It's okay, it's not that big of a deal. That's another reason why I really like sourdough recipes. Especially with busy mom life, when I'm chasing kids around or whatever, I can do what I need to do, and then I can come back to my sourdough. It doesn't hurt it. I can let it sit all day while I'm doing other things and forget about it, and then I can come back to it at night when everybody's in bed and it's just me in the kitchen. All right, so there's everything in there right now. And as you can see, I didn't mix anything or any extra work there. I'm gonna put it back on, and I'm gonna get my dough hook. And you never wanna use the KitchenAid. I had a lot of problems at first with my KitchenAid and making bread. And then I called the company because I thought it was broken, and they actually said you should never have to go above 2, the speed setting of 2 on your KitchenAid mixer, and 3 minutes is equal to about 10 minutes of hand kneading, which I didn't know that either. So kind of some cool facts there. I'm gonna turn it on to 1 again. You wanna lock your KitchenAid as well, especially once it starts getting everything together, just because it won't be good if you don't lock your KitchenAid mixer. So I'm letting everything incorporate right now. Okay, I just want to show you while our bread is almost done mixing how easy it is to feed the sourdough. Since I've used it, I do want to feed it a little bit just so that it can kind of replenish itself. This is my 1/2 cup measure. I just take my flour, whatever kind of flour you are using, I dump it in, and then I take my filtered water, 1/2 cup as well, and I dump that in as well. The next step, all that you have to do, is just quickly mix it in. This is a sourdough bread mixer. I usually use a whisk, but my whisk is dirty right now, so I'm just using this. You want to scrape the sides down. Make sure you get all that flour incorporated. If not, I found that it kind of molds too, so you want to not encourage that. Smells so good. Make sure you get all the sides. And that's it. I don't close it all the way, just latch it, and then I just put it back on the counter and let it do its thing until tomorrow, when I feed it again or use it again. I will see that though start to rise in a few hours and bubble up really nicely. So, all right, our loaf bread is done in the mixer. I'm gonna do the same thing I did with the tortillas, even though it doesn't say that we need to. I just like to. You know that it's done mixing and kneading when it can pass the window pane test. At first, when I heard window pane test, I had no idea what that meant. And all that means is that when you stretch your dough, you want to see light shine through it. If you're able to do that, then you know that your bread has kneaded enough and that you are, it's ready to start its next moment, which is to proof. So I'm just gonna hand knead it a little bit longer because it just doesn't feel quite like it would be, yeah, and see it's almost there. You can kind of stretch it and see light, but if you notice how it starts to kind of crack a little bit, you don't want that. So I'm just gonna knead it for a little bit longer. Incorporate a little bit more flour into it. It feels like it's almost ready. It's getting a little tougher, which is good. That's kind of what you want. And I'm going to stretch it a little bit. And I think we're almost there still. A little bit longer. I think we are ready to put it in our bowl and let it ferment. This particular recipe says 6 hours is fine. So I'm gonna try it at the 6 hours and see what happens. I'm just gonna cover it in a little bit more flour, put it in the bowl. This bowl does not need to be floured or anything like that. And then you can either cover it with plastic wrap or just a towel, again, like the tortillas. that we did earlier. So it says also put it in a warmer place. So I just usually put it closer to my oven, or on top of the fridge is a great place for it as well. That seems to stay a little bit warmer, but my house isn't very cool. So I just leave it on the counter in the kitchen. All right, well, now that my bread and my tortillas are done and they are resting and fermenting and doing their thing, I'm gonna start cleaning up, and then we're gonna get started on the pickled veggies for the refrigerator. This is not a canning recipe. Well, it is a canning recipe, but it's not gonna go in the pressure canner or a water bath or anything. It's just, they will be done in a couple of hours. Tomorrow, they will be ready to eat. But what I wanted to say about cleaning up sourdough is that you do not want to dump any of the discard down your sink, because it acts like glue or cement and it will clog your pipes. So what I do instead, and I found that it's very effective, is I take a large bowl, I put all of my discard items from my bread that I've used into this bowl, and I rinse them really, really well. And then I wash them with some soap and some water. I then take that water and I put it into my garden. There are benefits that I've seen already so far. I've just started doing this not too long ago. I used to just throw it out or wipe them off into the trash. One of my friends told me about it and I decided to try it and see, just as an experiment. My garden is thriving and I haven't seen very many bugs either. I don't know what it is about it, if it's the fermented part aspect of the sourdough starter or what, but just an idea of something to do. I thought a good way to end the video would be to do a quick refrigerator pickled veggie jarred idea. And this was just proposed to me because I had a ton of vegetables that we needed to use that were left over that were gonna go bad soon. So I figured what better way than to do a quick recipe on pickling vegetables, because it's super fast, super easy, and I know that it will get eaten in the house. So I've already washed and prepped peeled carrots, cut up the veggies into bite size, and put a few of them into jars, but I just wanted to leave one jar to show you how I stack them in the jars. These are just Ziploc jars that are 4 cups in size. So I just got them at my local Target, or you can find them at Walmart or on Amazon or wherever. And I like these because I especially like these for freezing liquids, because unlike mason jars, they won't break. So, and you can just throw them in the dishwasher. They're clean and they're ready to use the next time you can. Normally when you can something, you want to do a water bath or have them fresh out of the dishwasher. However, since these are plastic, I've already washed them and they are ready to go. So what I've cut up, what I had in my fridge was just some celery left over from the garden. I have some organic carrots that I peeled and put into just matchstick bite sizes. I put those in first and just try and stand them up just to fit more in there. I had some cauliflower also that was about ready to go bad, so I'm just kind of layering it in there. And then I also had some sweet peppers that were left over as well. So just kind of trying to get everything kind of in here. It's okay if it's packed pretty full, because remember, you're going to put liquid in it. You want to leave a little bit of head space in here just so that you have some room for the liquid, because we're going to make the liquid, the vinegar mixture, and we are going to submerge all of the vegetables, make sure that they're under water or under the vinegar water mixture with all of the seasonings so that they can do what they need to do. I also had some dill from my garden that I harvested, and I've already washed it and prepped it, and some chives. So I just thought, what a better way than to throw them in here and just add a little extra flavor. most canning recipes you want to follow. However, this is a refrigerator recipe, so I'm not following it as close as I would as if I was to water bath this or if I was to pressure can it, just because I know that we're going to be eating it within the next couple of weeks, so I'm not worried about having problems come and us getting sick from refrigerated pickling veggies. All right, so we're gonna make our brine now, and for the brine we need 2 cups white vinegar. I'm gonna double it just because I wanna make sure I have enough liquid, so I'm gonna do 4 cups of brine. Make sure you have 5% acidity white vinegar when you are canning anything. Okay, I'm gonna mix that into my pot here. And then I want 2 cups of water. And then I'm gonna use 4 tablespoons of sugar. Two tablespoons of pickling salt. And then I've already added my dill and my chives like we talked about earlier. I'm gonna add 4 teaspoons of organic mustard seed, or any kind of mustard seed really would work. Two teaspoons of celery seed. And you can just find all of this. I found all of this at my local grocery store or at Walmart or Amazon if that's easier for you. Azure has it, they're just in bigger sizes. And then I'm gonna put in some chili, crushed red chili flakes. Just to give it a little bit of spice. Now I'm going to put this on the stove. I'm going to mix it just a little bit. I'm going to put this on the stove and I'm going to let it simmer until it's dissolved. And then once the sugar has dissolved, I'm going to pour the mixture directly into my, my jars and make sure that they're full. I'm just going to stand here and stir this together a little bit and just make sure that my sugar is dissolving and the salt is dissolving and mixing in really well. I want all those flavors to combine because the more work that you do here, the less work it has to do in the fridge. It takes just a minute. If you want, you probably could add in some garlic cloves as well. That is something I didn't add in. I usually do when I'm doing these kinds of recipes, but this particular recipe didn't call for it. So I'm just gonna try something new. Okay, and it looks like it's pretty much dissolved. So I'm gonna let it warm a little bit longer. Normally I feel like these kind of dissolve but also come a little bit, make them just a little warmer, on the warmer side. All right, we're gonna finish up here just pouring the rest of our brine, and it is just completely making a mess now, into our mixtures here. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we are going to put these off to the side and we are gonna let them sit for an hour or two. That's what the recipe says to do. And then once we do that, we're gonna put them into the fridge and let them sit for 24 hours before we can actually eat them. So I will stay tuned, and in our next video, I will let you know how they turned out. They smell like pickled vegetables, so I'm hoping that they also taste like pickled vegetables. Thank you for watching today. Remember to like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you guys soon.